All right, folks, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and this is Radio Central, AM 830 WCRN. And of course, you can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. It's 508-871-7000. Our text line is also up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. That will get you into the studio. Now, what we have here is a screen. It appears in real time, and we try to work it into the conversation. Phone number, 508-871-7000. We got a lot to talk about today. Going through everything we got here, and I got to pull up some of my notes. This has been a very interesting and dynamic news week in so many ways, folks. Can't even begin to tell you. It's absolutely nuts. So what say you? Join the conversation, and you can do that again with the 508 number, 871-7000. We do stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. So, of course, you can listen to us there. And I do stream my show on my social media platforms. So that you can do on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, Joe Mangi Show. And also the show's turned into a podcast, folks. So you can always subscribe as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts as well. As far as what we're going to cover today, well, I hope you're comfortable, because today headlines, I mean, they're fast and they're hot. It's going to jump around a little bit here, but I've got a few minutes here to give you a sneak of what we're going to cover. We've got Trump in Greenland. This is extremely interesting. We've occupied Greenland in the past. It's rich in minerals. So Donald Trump, not satisfied with being just the president-elect, he's also back at it with the big ideas. And this time, in Greenland, yes, back on the table. Remember when the media mocked him for suggesting we buy it the first time around? He didn't let that go. Now he's framing it as a strategic move to counter China and Russia in the Arctic. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Meanwhile, the left is clutching their pearls, calling it imperialistic, because, it's better to let China buy up the world. And don't forget, if anyone can make Art of the Deal, Arctic edition happen, it is Trump. That's for sure. I mean, Greenland could come with some perks, right? Ice for our scotch and polar bears for the grandkids. What's not to like about it? In Canada, a northern frenemy, right? Speaking of neighbors, let's talk about Canada. Now Trudeau's government it was his government, has been getting cozy with the Chinese raising eyebrows across the globe. And America is asking, where did Canada, or when did it become Canada's +1 at the global dining table? Maybe it's time we send a few truckers back up there to remind them what freedom looks like. What they did to him, he did to the truckers, unexcusable. It's incredible. The Panama Canal showdown, right? We've got the Panama Canal, and China holds strategic influence over it. This is what triggered this. The treaty, when we gave it to them, outlined that Panama was to keep it fair and equitable. But they've let the Chinese come in and basically run the canal. The canal that Teddy Roosevelt helped secure for the Western Hemisphere is now playing host to Beijing's long game. It's like leaving your front door open and wondering where the raccoons moved in. And I'll break that down. This is a massive deal and how it could impact global shipping and America's security. And switching gears for a second, some bittersweet news. And this is sad, folks, because now there's news about the hostages in the Middle East and the number that are still alive. 56 Americans down to maybe 20 alive. So we'll talk more about that. That's breaking news as the negotiations. Look, Trump doubled down yesterday, tripled down, quadrupled down on the fact that the hostages better be released by the time he takes office on the 20th, or hell will break loose in the Middle East. And no, he wouldn't drill down on that despite reporters' questions. But do you really need much of a drilling down in that? Can you not fill those blanks in yourself? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's jump to the phones. Joel has been waiting patiently. Hey, Joel, what say you? Long time, buddy. Happy New Year.
Hey, listen, I was going to say that to you. You beat me to the punch. How you doing, Joe?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good,
got through
man.
the holidays all right, you know?
Yeah. I visit people in the area, so you know how it goes.
Yes, you're back. Are you still back up in the area, or are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Only for a time as I can take. Only as long as I can.
You know, you can listen to us on streaming. You don't have to go away.
Know.
Okay.
Oh, I have in the past, you know, but not lately. Okay. Listen, I just got, I was reading Sunday's NYP, right, the New York Post.
Mm-hmm.
And to set the record straight, one of their staff is by the name of Rich Calder. I was doing a story. Did a story on Jimmy Carter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe?
Yep.
And he got it all wrong. He said, or he referred to Jimmy Carter as a liberal Democrat. Well, let me tell Mr. Calder, Jimmy Carter was no liberal Democrat. He was a conservative Democrat. The challenge from the left in 1980 came from Senator Kennedy. Remember that, Joe?
I do remember.
Split the party in half.
Because Kennedy was asked the question, why do you want to be president? And he choked.
He did.
Yeah.
So what happened in November? Center Democrats and left-wingers, at the time I was a left-winger, as I told you and Peter a long time ago. It split the party in half, and a lot of Democrats didn't vote. And that was the real reason Carter lost to Reagan. It wasn't so much the economy that was in the tank at the time. And, of course, the situation that happened in Iran in the desert, right?
Right.
When we try to get our hostages back. But the real reason Carter lost was a big portion of the party stayed home on Election Day, November in 1980.
Yeah.
So I just want to set the record straight. Carter was the furthest thing from a liberal Democrat. He was way to the right.
But he also was remembered, Joel, for things like telling us to put a sweater on and turn the thermostat down, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to stay in the White House until the hostages are released.
Right.
And do you remember this, Joe? Because you were in the business. And tell me if you remember this. Mush from the Wimp Boston Globe headline, which was a mistake. They got 1,600 copies off. And
I think I did recall that. Yes.
Yeah. So that kicked off this Wimp thing, which of course resurfaced for George Bush later, right? When they tried to say George Bush was a wimp. But it was an editor at the Boston Globe, and it was an unintended headline, folks. And he had made a note about mush from the Wimp on a speech he gave on economics. And it became one of the most defining and enduring critiques of that presidency. But the story behind that mishap was far-reaching, because what happened was that this Globe, Kirk Schaffenberg, he was the editor at the Globe. And after the speech on economics, he made this note about mush, and he called Carter a wimp. And I don't know how the hell this happened, but it got on the editorial headline. They actually printed 161,000 copies of the Boston Globe. Now, the Globe I was on Globe staff in the early 90s, and they do three. Yeah, they do three editions, right? So they do 3 runs. So the headline and the stories in the first edition of the Globe that goes out can be very different than the third, as you know, Joe, in the business, because news has changed, stories get updated and all that. So the first 161,000 copies came off, and on the top of the editorial page, the title or the headline was "Mush from the Wimp." And later they replaced it for the remaining run of the Globe to the headline said, "All must share the burden," because this is Jimmy Carter took that attitude of we're all in this together, gas prices and oil prices are high, so put a sweater on and turn your thermostat down. And we had to do the license. We had to get our gas based on our license plate number.
Yes, I think I recall those days very well. Right. Joe, the copy desk. I remember when the great Ding Young worked for the Daily News, and when I first started out at the paper, if you came out with a scoop regarding the Yankees or the Mets in the old days, of course, the Giants and the Dodgers and the Yankees, he would call in the copy desk at 12 o'clock. In those days, it was called the rewrite desk. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
And they had to change the lead story, for the final edition. So to get it into the morning, the latest edition, he would call the rewrite desk, and I used to answer the phone the first 2 years I worked for the news. But you mentioned the Boston Globe. Can I close on one note?
Yeah, absolutely. The paper
Marty
record.
Barron, right. Martin Barron used to be the editor of the Boston Globe, right? Foolishly, he left that paper to become the editor of the Washington Post. And once Bezos bought the once he bought WAPO, he got rid of Martin Barron, and you think it's a coincidence that the paper's gone in the toilet since?
No.
He got one of the Martin Barron at the Boston Globe was known as probably in the top 3 as far as newspapermen in the whole country.
Right.
Do you recall?
Joe, I gotta hold you there. Joe, I gotta hold you because we're against
Joe,
hold on, we're against the hard break. You can stay on and finish your thought on the other side, but I have to take the break. It's predetermined, folks. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll let Joe finish his thought on that. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. Back in 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000-watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment of the Wednesday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Let me jump back to the phone. Joel, finish your thought there. We came up against the break.
Yeah. Joe, I said my point about the Boston Globe. I just want to end on media.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
You see, New York City now has only one all-news station, WINS. WCBS AM has gone to sports. It's being leased out by ESPN. Can you believe that?
Wow. Now, I go down in New York on a regular basis, and
unbelievable.
When I'm driving down there, I turn over to is it WINS? WNDS?
Yeah, WINS at 1010.
1010, yeah, 1010. And I listen, and they do, give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Right, give us the world.
And,
yeah.
I get caught up because they do some of the national headlines, but they do the New York stories. So I listen to that. And then there's a when I'm down there, I think it's 970 or 960. There's a talk station.
Oh, you're not making reference to WNYC, owned by the city of New York.
I don't think
I
it
mean,
is.
WNYC as at 8, they're at 8, what the heck? 8:20 a.m.
No, it's not that, because if it was 820, that's close to
you're
my
making
station.
reference. Right.
I think
right.
it's
You're talking-
970, maybe?
Right,
980?
right,
Yeah.
right. They changed their call letters. That's the station where Curtis Leawood did morning drive for 3 or 4 years until he quit.
Okay.
Yes, right. 970. I can't think of it.
I don't remember it
no
either.
One listens to him anymore.
Yeah, but I get in there and I listen to the,
Not Curtis Leawood.
Yeah, I listen to the afternoon usually.
But anyway, Joe, I really thought the city could do fine with just one all-news radio station.
No.
They really don't need to.
You think?
Not really. Yeah.
One of the largest
radio
cities in the
show
world can get
background.
away with one?
I said to people for years, I mean, there should be one all-news station in the city.
Yeah, but then, Joe,
You know,
who controls
because
it?
You're talking about the same owner, and they're competing basically against one another.
All right, wait a minute. See, now you gotta. That's part of the problem. You know, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, everybody went out of their mind, but nobody on the left had a problem when Bezos bought WAPO. That was
Right.
okay.
That was okay.
Zuckerberg and Meta buying up all the social media platforms, that's okay. So as long as your guy's buying up all the news and social media platforms, it's okay. So I think the competition's the best thing for it. Look at right here in this market, and we're counted in the Boston market. And you look at you would think, there are only 4 50,000 watt commercial stations. There's us, 50,000 watt WCRN. We've got the 680, the 1030, and we've got the 1200 because we had MEX went dark and 1060 went to Catholic. So the commercial stations, you think about it, for the 10th largest radio market, there are only 4 50,000 watt AM talk stations.
Joe,
and the other 3 are all owned by iHeartMedia. We're the only independently owned and operated radio station of this caliber.
And you forgot the 50,000 water in Hartford.
Well, that's a different market.
At 1080 on a dial.
And that's a different market. That's the Hartford
They're
market.
50 kW.
Yeah.
Non-directional signal.
But again,
non-directional
I'm talking about the market.
No,
That's a
vice versa.
completely different
Oh,
market.
the market.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I agree. I got my thoughts about the local Worcester market, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to bash anyone, right? In the market
Well,
now,
the only other station really to operate is 1/10 of our power.
right. That station, the Mickey Mouse station that's owned by iHeart, down the dial is so stupid. I mean, in morning and PM drive, they're owned by the same company that owns the Big Bomber down in Boston at 1030 on the dial.
Ted's biting at the chopper. What's up, Ted?
I gotta caution you, and to give you an example of what happens when you have one station that doesn't have to compete. You end up with an NPR, which is under the control of the government.
Well, they regurgitate everything from the government. That's what I'm trying. My point is, you need competition to keep the news honest. If you have one outlet, whether it's a printed, paper or newspaper, radio or TV station, if there is no competition and there's nobody in the market, you're going to get nothing but a propaganda machine. You got to have,
of course,
you got to have the competition to keep news honest. And then you've got to be able to let the market dictate it, because quite often a lot of stations that lean very, very far left commercially, I'm not ranking or trying. This is just the way it is. I've been in the industry a long time. Stations that tend to do all their programming left commercially don't usually survive. It's just the fact.
No,
it doesn't.
That's true.
So the market dictates a little bit about what they got to cover. Now look at CNN. I mean, when Whitney Cummings was on New Year's Eve, and and it's okay now apparently. She kept looking over at Andy and Vanderbilt's kid there. What's his name? Cooper.
Innocent Cooper.
Looking at Cooper because she thought they were going to pull the plug on her. Now I don't know where they're going to. It's New Year's Eve and the ball's about to drop. Where are you going to cut to? But she made the comment about, I play, theaters and stadiums with over 3,000 people, which is about CNN's viewership now.
Exactly.
she
in
was
the dumper.
cranking on them big time, and she
In the
kept looking over to see when they were going to cut her off, but they didn't.
Yeah.
What could they possibly do? But
Exactly.
now it's safe, and they want all these people who are on the left, who are now realizing they've been misreading everything, that they were part of the cover up of Joe Biden's decline, all of that. They want to be able to come over and play in our camp now, and they want everything
Yeah.
that let's
Joe.
just move forward. No. We may be able to forgive, but we're not going to forget what you did to us in
Right.
the pandemic, and we're not going to forget
You're right.
what you did to us with the presidency.
Typically in a blue state.
Yeah, we're just not going to forget. We'll forgive and we'll coexist, but we're not going to forget.
People. Exactly. But Joe, you mentioned that radio owner with the first letter being E. I mean, they've killed commercial radio nationwide. They own over 350 radio stations still.
Yeah, and now we've got Soros wanting to buy the Odyssey up, and
right,
and that's
and they own signals in the city too.
Yep.
I mean, who do you think owns the new WHTQ? That was WCBS AM, and they own WFAN and Wins too. I mean,
just as some background, and Joe, you probably know this, being in the newspaper, but for listeners
Mm-hmm.
that don't know, when you have a license and you're going to buy it, sell it, there is a process you go through the FCC, and the government's supposed to look at your control or share of that market, and you're not allowed to control an excessive amount. So sometimes when you have Odyssey and iHeartRadio, they're going to merge or buy each other, and they're going to buy hundreds and hundreds of stations. They have to look at the markets, and they say, we'll approve this sale, but you got to sell 2 or 3 of the stations in this geographic area. Otherwise, you have 60% of the audience, and you can't control that much. So a lot of times when we see these mergers within stations, in these big groups, you'll see stations have to be sold off, because otherwise the FCC won't allow this to happen.
Well, you brought up something very accurate, because as you know, CBS Radio doesn't exist anymore. They sold all their radio stations in the past 12, 13 years. CBS Radio's history, they don't exist anymore. Also, that E station owned by iHeart, I just want to inform the Worcester, Mass listeners, they don't do the local newscasts from their studios outside of Worcester.
No,
like
all
you
those,
guys do in the No, all those newscasts.
They all come from one place.
Yes, they come out of their sister station in Springfield, Massachusetts. So Worcester listeners who listen to those newscasts, just realize one thing. They're not doing the local news from their local studios. They're using their sister in Springfield to feed out Worcester area news.
Absolutely.
So that's how weak a station they are.
Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much for the call. Always a great call, always interesting stuff. And just to pick up on that, that's one of the when you have all of these groups that buy multiple stations and programming, for a guy like me who came up into this business 40 years ago, and we would go into the local radio station and they'd have a sales team of 7 or 8 people, 3 people in the news department, full-time morning guy, midday guy, afternoon guy. Now you've got these companies, they have one major office location and studios, and they feed stations all over the place. So the news is being written and broadcast from another city, maybe in another state, and it's not coming from here. I mean, and we're one of the few stations of our size with our footprint that's still independently owned, not owned by a big conglomerate or a network or something. Independently owned by a family, and still run it from our own studios. But yes, a lot of other stations, when you listen to it, you're getting sanitized, processed news and talk. And that's another thing for this. I might as well take this opportunity to segue into the fact of this station. I mean, when we say live and local, our programming is coming from our people in our area. I mean, of course, we have Howie Carr, which is a Boston guy originally. Now, sure, he might be his house in Florida, but sometimes, guys, I'm in Florida when I'm doing the show. You don't know it, but the point is, we are programming is local talent and local producers, and that's just on the upside of everything here. But we still got a lot to talk about, because we've got Trump versus New York. The legal circus is continuing there, and he does file. We'll talk about him filing. So what he's doing, he's filing an emergency petition with SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, to block the sentencing in the New York versus Trump. So the scene here is the jury finds him guilty of falsifying business records. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg sets a sentencing date for January 10th. Judge Juan Marchand decides he won't impose prison time, but rather an unconditional discharge, which is bull. And what does that mean? Well, basically no punishment, but Trump's team isn't taking any chances. They're arguing presidential immunity and a political witch hunting. And that's going to go all the way to the highest court in the land as we talk. Trump lawyers called the case flawed from the very, very beginning. Tons of reversible errors on that, folks. And they're not wrong. All right? Not wrong. This is a master class in weaponizing lawfare. And the Democrats couldn't beat him at the ballot box, so they're trying to ding him in the courtroom. And the left is losing their minds while Trump supporters are saying, go get him, boss, man. We got to take our mid-show break here in the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Text line up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Stick with us for the second half of the Wednesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show and AM 830 WCRN. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. The breeze continues today with gusts frequently 30 to 40 miles per hour, and a couple spots might hit gusts of 50. That means wind chills will oftentimes be 15 degrees lower than temperature readings. So I'm going to go with highs today in the 20s, wind chills in the singles and teens all day long. Partly cloudy skies between today and tomorrow. There might be a rogue flurry out there, otherwise keeping it dry until Saturday. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Headline news, weather, and local information central to your day on Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Wednesday afternoon edition here of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available. You can join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Don't forget, you can always join me on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI, on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, YouTube for the station's Facebook page. We're streaming it from the palatial but not overly ostentatious studios here in Westboro, Massachusetts. Also, my show is, and I don't say this enough, it's actually turned into a podcast, and you can subscribe at Spotify, iHeartRadio, tuned in wherever you get your podcasts. After I go off the air, not only is it on the replay link at WCRNradio.com, but then it's a podcast later in the day, and you can hit that subscribe button at any of those, from Podbean to Spotify or whatever. Spotify seems to be the the place most people listen to it there. But anyway, 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phone. Ken's been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. And I do say it was good hearing from Joel.
Yeah. He does
and
tend to
also-
call when he gets back in the area, right? The holidays and stuff. So that's nice.
Yeah, I'm glad he mentioned one of the things that changed over time in New York City, because I grew up in Connecticut, and my father would have weekdays, WCBS 880, and apparently that hasn't existed for over a decade. So
Yeah.
good to know, even though I have memories.
Like I said, obviously I go to New York on a regular basis and I like to listen. So I do the 1010 news, and they do this. They recycle every 22 minutes. They change it up a little bit. So once I get that, I go over to, I think it's 970, and that's the talk station, and you get the because they'll have all kinds of New York people on. So it's kind of cool. I take a little peek into the local New York scene. And that guy Curtis from the Guardian Angels goes on there a lot. They've got people who have been in New York City government for ages. They're on there, and it's just kind of interesting to go to another major market and listen to the local radio stations. And you try to get to it. I was coming up last year one time, coming back in the morning. I'm driving out, and the station I was listening to made some crack about Boston, right? And I'm listening. I'm like, roll the damn number, right? So finally they rolled the number, and I called up to take issue with what they said about Boston, and finally I let them know I was on in Boston radio. So they had to razz me a little bit about that, but it's interesting to listen to other stations and other markets when you travel.
Absolutely.
And
it's with Sirius, it's a little easier too to get
Yeah.
some of the national stations.
Yeah, well, that's just the tech. This industry had to go with the flow and the technology. In every station, you can either find every station on iHeartRadio because they probably own you, or you're on the TuneIn app, one of the two. And we're on TuneIn, as I don't know how many times I say that. So we're on there, as is other thousands of other stations. But Odyssey also was streaming us as well. The one that Soros is buying up. And then, of course, each individual show, we all tend to market the shows as well, whether it's just letting it be in the replay link, or some of us do, like I do, turn it into a podcast, stream it, and my show actually gets turned into the TV show on Torch TV. So depending on what station and who you are, how it's distributed and put out there, but nobody in this business just turns the terrestrial towers on and leaves it alone. You know what I'm saying? Everybody streams their station. You have to.
Yep, it's today's technology.
Yeah.
So anyway, at the end, you were getting to the Trump case that's been brought up again on Friday, I guess.
Yeah.
And I've heard warnings from experts that the U.S. Supreme Court needs to step up and recognize that if they don't come down on this, it's setting a precedent that will haunt us in years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And what they should be relying on to wipe out the shenanigans is relying on the supremacy clause of the Constitution. Because effectively, what you have are the Lilliputians going after the giant every time they deem it.
Yeah, what's going to stop a DA
side.
from Wichita
Right.
to go after, or a Kentucky DA to go after a Democratic nominee or president? Like just stop it. And it seems to me, just my observation, my opinion here, that it's often the left who try to pull maneuvers that tend to backfire. It came up in the show the other day. Ted Kennedy, he was the guy who kept flipping back how we replace a senator in this state because we got a Republican governor. He wanted the special election. Then when we had a Democratic governor, he said, well, I want it to be that you appoint one. And all the flipping, he got caught short when he passed away. It was in a special election. That's how Scott Brown got in. So stop it. Leave the system. It's worked for hundreds of years. Let it continue to work. A matter of fact, I think we need to go back to the blueprint of the country. That's the Constitution. And from time to time and refresh memories, especially, Ken, I don't know about you. Sometimes you see some of these senators and Congress people on TV, whether they're speaking in the chamber or they're in an interview, and you realize they have no idea how our government works. I mean, AOC thought the three branches of government was Senate, Congress, and presidency. That's a sitting congressperson. She thought that's what the three branches of government was to this woman. So you look at this and you go, maybe these people need to take a civics test before they can run for federal office.
Well, in her case, the story of how she got into Congress.
Yeah, she's a social media. She's a social media congressperson.
That was after she knocked off the incumbent in the primary.
But how did she knock him off? She knocked him off because she was this wicked progressive. Go ahead. Yeah.
That you had advocacy group personnel that saw this as a story that would really shake things up. In other words, she was taking on the number 3 or 4 within the
he was high up in he was high up in seniority, right?
Yeah. But they knew he was taking it lightly, and so they threw a lot of money into it, and they just drafted her out of thin air. It wasn't like she was looking to run for the Congress. They just thought her as a personality that they'd be able to manipulate and possibly pull off the stunt, and they did all of a sudden. And then they went crazy grabbing other identity people, so that you ended up with
the squad.
The squad, exactly.
Yeah, and squad wannabes, actually. No.
Well, the interesting things, they added some players later that have since lost their election.
Yep.
Bowman won, and I think there was another also.
Yeah, a few of them got knocked down in primaries and then lost general. So, again, and we've been talking about this here on this show, this station, about the pendulum, and that they had just gone so far left that you can't help that we're gonna suffer a spring back, and we've seen that. And I don't think it's just all of the pendulum. I think common sense came into play finally, and I think that and Ken, I've talked about this, I've written about this, that when we look back in history, and as we're seeing even now living it, I'm wondering if the term between the Trump terms is a better thing than 2 consecutive terms. And I say that because what Biden's term did, although it brought us to the brink of disaster here, it woke a lot of people up, I think. It illustrated the gaslighting, the absolute in bed with the media and the DNC, the lying to our faces. The whole thing came so much to light that everything Trump was saying in 2016 to 2020 about fake news and all these things that they were poo-pooing and shooing away, laughing at, mocking, became so evident that what Trump was saying about fake news and the witch hunt and lawfare, and that this is just wrong, all is true, and became so evidently true, including Biden's decline, which, as we're finding out, goes back to day one. So that, on top of the fact that 4 years, and I mentioned this yesterday, the day before and stuff, Donald Trump wasn't just chilling. He was certainly playing golf and enjoying his lifestyle, but he has been planning and working and putting second term into place for those 4 years. And that's why we see, this guy moving at the speed he's going at with the nominations and the candidates and so forth. And I mean, he's talking as the de facto president at this point. I mean, he's not even taken office. He's got Greenland trying to say we're not for sale. He got Trudeau out, right? And Trudeau would still be there if it wasn't for Trump being elected. You got the Gulf of Mexico becoming the Gulf of America. You got Panama, or you got the Chinese in a panic now. And he hasn't even taken office. And now you've got SCOTUS. And I agree with you, Ken. SCOTUS has got to do something fast on this and nail it.
Yeah, the other item from yesterday's news of interest is legislatively the Laken-Riley Act.
Yes.
And the fact that only one Mass representative, Lynch, voted for it. Now, that I think would be means by which to start a campaign for a Republican candidate, of which only about half of the seats are even being challenged.
Yeah, that is a big problem here, folks, is there are good Republicans, but we don't have good Republican candidates. And I don't know if it's just the and Ken, thank you for the call. I always appreciate it. And again, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. But we don't have candidates that are coming forth and anxious. And I don't know if it's just that they feel that as a Republican in Massachusetts, there's no chance, so why bother? Or they don't want to go through the media attacks in the ridiculous expose and digging that's unbalanced towards a right candidate opposed to a left candidate. Left candidates don't get the kind of looking at and digging into that the right candidates do. And then again, people in this state, most people, in my opinion, vote by party, not by candidate, and that's just stupid. Sorry, man. 508-871-7000. Back for the fourth and final. Stick with us. 2 and 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own, but MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Discover the Yatco difference today. At Yatco Fuel Service and Food Stations, excellence isn't just a goal, it's our commitment to you. We're dedicated to providing you with top-notch customer service and the finest products, making your life easier every step of the way. Celebrating over 30 years of fueling the community with 14 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts. Whether it's filling up your tank or grabbing a quick snack, we've got you covered. Yatco Fuel Service and Food Stations. Fueling your journey, fueling your life.
This is Phil George, the biochemist from Wellness Wave Radio. Are you or a family member trying to find just the right college? Then let me introduce you to Anna Maria College in Paxton, Massachusetts. As a proud graduate myself, I can attest to the fact that Anna Maria is a beacon of personalized education. Unlike many large colleges, Anna Maria fosters a dynamic, close-knit community and one-on-one mentorship. Ready for something greater? Check out their website, annamaria.edu.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. I want to finish my thought on this because we've talked about this, the Trump situation and in the New York case. And Ken brought up a good point, so that the Supreme Court has to block the sentencing in the New York versus Trump case. And remember, this is all about, and I talked about it earlier in the week on the shows, and Alan Dershowitz brought this up with the former mayor there in Connecticut about, could you articulate the crime? This is all about falsifying business records, but they weren't falsified. If he was hiding this, why are they entering it in the books? If it was something to be hid, it would have been a cash transaction They would have used a good old-fashioned bagman to deliver the cash. It was a legitimate payment for a legitimate thing. A DNA is very legal. It's used every day of the week. And now we're looking at 16 million and change, almost $17 million in taxpayer money paid out to do hush money for members of Congress. So let's look at that. I'm more concerned about that payout with American tax dollars than I am with Donald Trump's own private money. So it wasn't being hidden. And he used his own money, not campaign money. Could you imagine if he let the campaign pay for this? What he would have done? So Alvin Bragg had to do legal gymnastics to bootstrap this thing together and claims that he falsified records. Yet, please point out the falsification, because the bookkeeper in the Trump organization put it right in the books. $130,000. Here we go. Bill from the lawyer, legal expenses. This is not a crime of the century, folks. It's not even a crime. Not even a crime. So with sentencing scheduled for a few days on the 10th, just 10 days before the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States, this is a precedent-setting situation we're in. And the legal battleground is over presidential immunity, or at least it's putting presidential immunity at the forefront. Because central to Trump's court petition is the argument of presidential immunity. And earlier in the year, or last year, the court ruled that presidents, not Trump, presidents are immune from prosecution for actions undertaken as part of their official duties. And Trump's legal team contends that evidence related to official presidential acts, they were erroneously admitted during the trial. They shouldn't have been permitted in, violating this precedent. Well, the argument touches on a fundamental constitutional question, folks. Where do the limits of presidential immunity begin and end? And Trump's team asserts that the Manhattan court lacks the authority to impose a sentence or proceed further with the case until these substantial claims of immunity are resolved once and for all. And as Ken made reference to, I agree, they will have very long-lasting implications on future presidents and future prosecution. Ted, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I really can't believe I'm agreeing with Dershowitz, but the underlying crime is not there. The underlying evidence of this betrayal of the rules is not there.
That's 100%, which is why he posed that question to the mayor, former mayor there in Connecticut. Could articulate the crime, please. Tell me what the crime is. I don't know what the crime is, but the jury found him guilty of it. Okay. If you found someone guilty of a crime, should you not be able to point to the crime, the statute in the book, and say, this is the crime. Here are the elements of a crime, because a crime has elements. Here are the elements of the crime, and he violated the following elements, which constitutes breaking the law. But nobody can actually do that. So further filing underscores the need for the court, SCOTUS, Supreme Court, to intervene. The meritless hoax must be immediately dismissed, Trump's team argues. And Judge Merchan, who presided over the trial, he has said that he doesn't intend to impose a sentence of incarceration. Well, thank you very much, as you let hardcore criminals run around the streets, but that's another conversation. Instead, he suggested an unconditional discharge. Trump's team's not willing to accept even a symbolic conclusion to the case. They deem politically motivated and a huge farce. And I don't blame them. Don't accept it. I talked about this, about when people are throwing around all these pardons. Oh, wouldn't it be a good idea for Joe Biden to pardon Trump on the way out the door? It would be a good olive branch, and you know, no. What I argued then, and I maintain this, is if I was Trump, I don't want a pardon, because a pardon, you accept the pardon, you're accepting that you're guilty of some crime that needed to be pardoned. Trump wants these things to collapse on their own, to be dismissed because there's no merit to them. So what is the political implications of lawfare and justice after this? The timing of the sentencing just days before Trump's inauguration, this adds this undeniable layer of political intrigue to this. Trump and his supporters have framed the case as part of a broader campaign of lawfare because they were coming at him from multiple states, multiple levels, just going after him where they never would have. We're back to show me the man, I'll show you the crime, opposed to, oh, there's a crime, let's investigate it, who's responsible for it. And the use of the legal system to achieve political ends by Democrats seeking to undermine his presidency all along. And now even got Joe Biden. And again, is he purposely doing this? Is he that sharp still to even purposely do it? Or is he just forgetting he's not supposed to talk about certain things when he says his one regret is Merrick Garland because he didn't prosecute Trump hard enough and fast enough to eliminate him as a presidential prospect. And how dare he go after my son for the actual provable, evident crimes that this kid did. Stephen Chung, he's Trump's spokesperson, characterized the case as emblematic of political weaponization of our justice system. In this framing, it absolutely resonates deeply with Trump's base. For many of us, we see the legal battles he faces as proof of that entrenched system that's desperate to thwart off American first agenda, to keep and preserve the deep state, the swamp intact. But critics, however, argue that no one, not even President-elect, is above the law. How many times do we hear that phrase? No one's above the law. But Hunter got a lot of breaks. Joe Biden, right? The Justice Department. Look, they keep saying about the corruption in the Biden family. Oh, well, he hasn't been prosecuted, hasn't been charged. How come you're not bringing it? Comer has presented it. He's got the bank records. You know, before he went into Congress, he was in banking. So he knows his way around banks and banking law. And he has the documents. They have the paper trails. They have the money coming into the shell corporations, distributed among the corporations, to the brother Jim. As soon as the money goes in the account, a check comes back out to Joe Biden. In any other situation, in an investigation, we call that evidence, folks. We call it a paper trail. We follow the money. But members of Congress can't prosecute anybody. The system is they refer it over to the Department of Justice, who takes the referral and they run with it. But the Biden Justice Department isn't running with the evidence that Comer and the subcommittee in Congress has come up with the banking records. So what is the role of the Supreme Court here? Well, as Trump's petition reaches the Supreme Court, the institution finds itself once again in the spotlight here. Now, people say it has a conservative majority, but all their decisions doesn't necessarily prove that, including 3 justices appointed by Trump himself. So the court's decision will inevitably face scrutiny. But if the court grants Trump's request, it could set a precedent, expanding presidential immunity, potentially shielding presidents from accountability even after leaving office. But there's been a certain answer to that on the accountability and the fact that he was overwhelmingly elected too. So on the other hand, rejecting the petition could embolden future legal actions against sitting or former presidents, potentially politicizing the judicial process even further, folks. So a lot of this is uncharted territory for us. And the inauguration of a president-elect under legal cloud is a first. So regardless of SCOTUS's decision, the situation places the nation in uncharted territory, and Trump is poised to become the first president-elect to face sentencing on criminal charges just days before taking the oath of office. And the optics of this is unprecedented. For Trump supporters, it reinforces the narrative of a man standing firm against a biased system. I was saying this all through the election. They started backing off the convicted felon label because all that did, every time you tried to put that out there that he's convicted felon, which he actually technically wasn't until it's put in the books and you're sentenced. But the point is, they wanted that label. But every time they used the label, all it really did was remind us of the twisting of the law, of the trumped up charges, no pun intended. And so that kind of became, oh, that really backfired, didn't it? Now, for the detractors, it highlights the legal and ethical controversies that have defined his public life in a lot of ways. The outcome of New York versus Trump will have implications far beyond the immediate case here, folks. It will test the boundaries of presidential immunity, set precedents for future legal and political conflicts, and shape the narrative of Trump's return to the White House. So stay tuned, and we got to watch what SCOTUS does in the next few days. It's going to be a massive implication here. But we got to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Follow me on social media, Joe Mangi Show, MANGI. Check for this show as a podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And also you can check out Torch TV on your streaming devices. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Jerry Doherty tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock for Political Thursday. Joe out, folks.